Sure.
Well, everyone, welcome back to a very exciting episode. It's very exciting for me because I have personally one of my favorite actors on the show today. His name is Chazz Palminteri. Now, for those of you that don't know who he is, he's Bronx-born and raised. He's an actor. He got the attention of some of the greats such as Robert De Niro, Martin Scorsese, Joe Pesci, so many amazing human beings. He's been in incredible films and TV shows. Some of them that you might have seen. He played Shorty in the hit TV show and sitcom Modern Family. He was actually Jay's best friend, and my name's Jay, so there you go. He's also been in Stallone's Oscar film, Hill Street Boys, so many others. He's got a show that he wrote and does himself, which is pretty incredible, called A Bronx Tale. He's actually revitalizing that at the moment. He's doing shows, I believe, very, very soon. He's also got an amazing podcast, which you can go and check out on Apple, Spotify. Some guests that he's interviewed. One of them in particular is an alumni of the Storybox, mutual friend, Ali Brooke. And he's also interviewed someone else. I'm blanking on the name. I apologize. It'll come back to me later on, but I highly encourage you to go and check out his YouTube channel, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But Chazz, it's an absolute pleasure and honor to welcome you to the Storybox podcast today.
Oh, it's good to be here, Jay. It's good to be here.
It's so good to have you here. And like I was saying just a second ago, you're one of my all-time favorite actors. And it's because you command any role that you are in, you command the screen, whether it's comedy, action, drama, thriller, mystery, whatever it is, whatever you're playing, you command the screen. And for someone that is a huge admirer and a lover of stories and film in particular, I look for that. I'm a bit different and unique that way. But I was so excited when you said yes to being on my show because I believe you have a very interesting story, which I can't wait to get into. Before we do that, though, my very first question for you is, what does success look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Success looks like, for me, I would say doing what you want, being independent, where you can make your own decisions, and doing what you love to do and make a really good living at it. To me, I mean, of course, having a family, children. But other than having a great family, a wife and children, it's doing what you love to do. Success is really, look, we're all going to die. Nobody's is going to beat that one, So I would say, I always think about my dad who told me the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. Mm-hmm. And every day I wake up thinking that I'm wasting something. I'm not doing enough, So I think that's why I'm still here for so long, because I'm very driven. And I just think at the end of your lifetime, success would be that the really great happy moments and the achievements outweigh the sad moments. Mm. And I think, to me, that would be okay.
I love that. When was the moment for you, Chazz, that you realized that doing what you love was in fact success for you? Has it been this gradual thing over time for you over the life, or has it been like this catalyst moment somewhere?
Well, I really wasn't good at anything else. I mean, I have to be honest about that. I always wanted to be an actor when I was 10. I started out as a singer. I was writing when I was young. I couldn't see that I could be good at anything else. I mean, I thought about it one time in college. I thought about not doing it, but I really enjoyed. I thought about I would have liked to have been a shrink, a psychiatrist, because I enjoy the human mind. But I started feeling that way when I went to therapy. When I went into therapy, I said, gee, I really like this. But it helped me as an actor. But I was just good at it. I was good at acting right away, and I was good at singing. I was good at writing. I don't want to sound like a little bit of an asshole here, but I had natural ability, But then I worked on it. I went to school. I studied. God gives you a certain amount of talent.
Yeah.
And then it's your job to take that talent and make it even bigger.
Mm.
So, and that's what I worked on very hard, and I still do.
Mm. So for someone growing up in the Bronx area, which back in those days, it probably wouldn't have been an easy place to actually grow up in. There would have been a lot of crime, would have been a lot of crazy things happening. Was it difficult for you to actually make your goal, I guess, of wanting to become an actor possible?
Well, it's funny, but people say that to me. They say, a Bronx tale. A Bronx, it must have been, yeah. Was it a rough neighborhood? Yeah. Was there crime there? Yes. Was there drugs there? Yes. But I had a great childhood. We all had a great childhood. We all had loving parents who loved us. Our parents were all together. Very few people were divorced back then. Very few people at that time. So we'd watch movies, Italian movies, and The Godfather and all those Main Streets and all those movies there. But I knew I was going to make it. I knew it. I just knew it. I didn't know when. And it did happen for me later on in life. It didn't happen until I was 38 years old. So it took me a while, but I really started working once I really put my mind to it and said, all right, stop. You're doing it half-assed. You really got to go for it here. Mm. Probably 8 years later, that's when it happened. So
did you have any doubt along the way?
No. I'm sorry to say that. I really didn't. I said, I'm going to make it. It's going to take time. I kept hearing this little voice in my head. Did I ever say I'm going to quit? No. No. Don't forget, I was 38 years old. I ran out of money, had no money. Here I was approaching 40 years old with no money, no future, just my talent. And then finally at that stage, that's when I really said, okay, I got to take it up another notch now. And that's when I wrote Bronx Tale. So
from that, how are you feeling in that moment of, okay, I don't have any money. Did you know exactly where to go? Like, was there like this plan laid out for you, or was it?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. What happened was when I got to LA around 86, I started auditioning. I started getting parts on television. Hill Street Blues, I was on there. I played Sonny Capoletto on there. And then I got on Dallas, and I got on Matlock, and then I got a couple of TV series. And then I was on Peter Gunn. And then as any actor, you start running out of money. So I saved all those money from those jobs. And after about 2.5 years, I ran out of money. And then I used to bounce. Because I was a boxer. Yep. So I got a job at a very swanky club in Beverly Hills. And I was working there for about 3 months and supplementing my income, unemployment and that. And then finally one day I didn't let this person in the club because he was rude to me. And the guy looked at me and said, "You're going to be fired in 15 minutes, And I said, "Really? Who are you?" So we didn't have cell phones back then. And so he started yelling at me, and the boss came out, and I heard the boss say, "Swifty." And the person was Swifty Lazar. For those of you who don't know, you're too young. Swifty Lazar was the biggest agent in the world at the time. And I just told him he couldn't come into his own party. So it was kind of dumb, but he was rude to me, and that's why I did that, and he finally, I got fired, just like he said. 15 minutes later, I drove back to my little apartment in North Hollywood with my 1972 Honda with the dent in it. And then I just sat on the edge of my bed and I said, what the hell am I going to do, And then I said, well, I looked on the refrigerator. My father's card was there. The saddest thing in life is wasted talent. And I said, well, if they won't give me a great part, I'll write one myself. And I went to Thrifty Drugstore. I got 5 tabs of, I make my notes on it, 5 tabs on yellow paper. And I said, what am I going to write about? Then I remembered this killing that I saw when I was 9 years old. I always thought about it. I always wanted to write about it. I said, I'll write that. I want to write about the killing and my relationship with the wise guys. and my father. And I just wrote 5 minutes, about 7 minutes of the monologue. And I performed it for my theater workshop. And they loved it. And then each week I would write. And on Monday nights, I would perform more of it. I would perform 10 minutes, take away 3 minutes, 5 minutes, take away 2 minutes. I kept doing that for almost a year. And at the end of a year, I had 90 minutes of this one-person show where I played all the characters, 18 characters. I mean, I literally do the movie on stage by myself. That's why everybody in the world wanted it. So my friend lent me some money. I put it up at this theater, and the reviews and my life just exploded. I mean, exploded. It was unbelievable, Jay. After the first 2 weeks, a studio called me up and offered me $250,000 for the story.
Wow.
And I said, I had $200 in the bank. And I said, yeah, but I want to play Sonny and I want to write the screenplay because it's my life. And they said, no, you're very good, but we want a star in the role. And I said, well, then forget it. I'm not doing it. Al Pacino came to see it. Jack Nicholson came to see it. Burt Reynolds came to see it. Ray Sharkey came to see it. I mean, all the big stars back then came to see it. They all wanted to play Sonny. And all the big producers and directors in Hollywood, this was 1989, came to see it. Everybody wanted it. They called me back 3 weeks later, offered me $500,000. Same thing. I can't play Sonny. I can't write the screenplay. I said, forget it again. Finally, I signed with I signed with an agent. I didn't even have an agent at the time. And then I finally signed with them because a lot of people wanted me. I decided to go with William Morris. I went with William Morris, and in about 2 weeks with them, I went to another meeting, and I sat down at this table, and the guy had a piece of paper, and he slid it across the table. And he said to me, if you sign that check right now, you'll have it. He goes, if you sign that contract right now, you'll have a check tomorrow for $1 million. And I said, is there a bathroom around here? And he said, yeah, there's one right over there. So I got the key to the executive bathroom, and I went in it. I was by myself while they were all outside waiting for me. And I thought about it, and I put my hand in my pocket, and I took the card with me for some reason. I've never taken it before with me, but this time I took it. I don't know why. And I looked at the card, and it said, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. And I looked in the mirror. I could curse, right? Could I curse?
Of course, yeah.
I looked at the mirror. I looked in myself in the mirror, and I said, fuck it. And I walked back outside, and I said, if I play Sonny and I write the screenplay, I'll sign it. And they just put their heads down. And the head of the studio looked at me and said, Chazz, this movie will never get made. And I said, you're right, it won't with you. But sooner or later, it'll get made. And he says, why are you so confident? I said, because it's just too fucking good. And sooner or later, somebody will do it. So I walked out. And then 2 weeks later, I was doing the show. The audience was I was selling out every night. 2 weeks later, I did the show, standing ovation every night. I get off the stage, and the stage manager runs over to me and says, you better go to your dressing room. Robert De Niro is waiting for you in there. He just saw the show. I said, Robert De Niro? He said, yeah. I said, wow. So I walked into the dressing room. There was De Niro. And he said, that's the greatest one-man show I ever saw. He said, you did a movie. I said, yeah, I know. He said, look, if you end up selling this thing, they're going to come to me anyway. He said, but I want to tell you what I want to do. He goes, I think you should play Sonny. And I think you should write the screenplay because it's your life. I'll play your father and I'll direct it. And if you shake my hands, I give you my word, that's the way it'll be. I shook his hand, and that's the way it was.
What an incredible story. I mean, for those people that haven't heard that story before, I mean, I was smiling the entire time. Yeah. And the way you told it, my goodness. I mean, I got a lot to unpack in that story, but one area that I do want to go down is you mentioned your relationship with your father for a moment. Yeah. What was the relationship with your father? Was it a good relationship? Was it
great.
Yep.
Great relationship. The relationship in Bronx Theater, that was it. I mean, I had a great relationship with my father. Great. My father didn't want me to end up like other guys there in the street. So he very watched over me. He was very strict, my mother and father. I was constantly watching me. Didn't want me to hang around with the guys in the bar. But I loved my father dearly, and he loved me, and I loved my mother dearly.
Very humble beginnings, I believe. Your father was a bus driver. Is that correct?
He was a bus driver. He made $48 a week. We had 3 kids, and it was very hard for him to survive. And I say, when I say that line in the play, I say, he used to have to cash in empty soda bottles to buy food sometimes. No, we had it tough. But you know what? I never thought we had it tough because everybody in my neighborhood was like that. So, but we all had so much love in the house that it was okay.
You never went without the essentials. I think that's important.
No.
Yeah. I grew up. Yeah. That's sort of how I grew up as well. Like my dad had to work 2 jobs just to put food on the table. I mean, Joy was like a lower middle class, but it was like the bottom of middle class.
Right.
I mean, but we never went without the essentials. It was always, I guess, everything that we needed.
Right.
Which is important.
Well, that's why you're successful. I'm sure that you got a lot of love. You feel confident. That's why you're such a young man and being so successful already. You know.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That has a lot to do with it. You know. Well, you are. I mean, I listened to your podcast before I said yes. I listened to a bunch of them, and I could see that you had a talent to. You're intelligent. You know, and you know how to ask questions. You know how to get people to as you used to use the term, unbox. You know,
yes.
So, and I said, okay, I think it'll be okay.
Thank you. That means a lot, you saying that, and me being able to hear it and appreciate it from one of my favorite actors. I mean, it's an honor to actually unbox a little bit of your story today. Yeah. But I'm curious, like, what would you say apart from, you know, that card saying wasted talent? Would you equate being your father's best, or what would you say you learned the most from your dad, the biggest lesson from him?
Oh, wow. I learned a lot of lessons from my dad, but I think the biggest one was be kind. Be kind. And don't try to, and don't lie. My father could not lie. He could not lie. I mean, he really couldn't. I mean, if we had a used car and that some things were wrong with the car and the guy asked him, well, what's wrong with it? My father would tell him everything that's wrong with it. And nobody would ever buy the used car because it was little things. But my father would, I said, Dad, you can't say everything. He goes, well, I don't want to lie to anybody. I said, yeah, but you know, so the cigarette lighter doesn't work. What's the big deal? You know, he would say everything, you know, but he was a gentleman and he was kind. And I think that's what I learned the most from him.
What did you learn from your father about being a real man?
That a real man has a responsibility and takes care of his family. That's what a real man does. And my father wanted to be a saxophone player, wanted to be a singer. But when we came along, me and my sisters, you know, he couldn't do it, you know. But he didn't bitch about it. He got a job as a bus driver. He did what he had to do. A real man takes care of his family. My dad was one of those who made it say like, you could be the biggest success in the world, have all the money in the world, but if you're a failure as a father, that's something that's not good.
Yeah. That's more important stuff.
That overrides everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a very similar lesson from my grandfather. He taught me that as well. He said it's far more important to value relationships and people around you than mere stuff. I mean, like when that's all gone, what's left?
Right. Well, you see, you have to realize that when you have a child, Jay, you're obviously young, but when you get a child, everything you do, everything you say is a mirror to them. Everything. the way you treat your wife, the way you treat his mother, the way you talk to her, the way you talk to other people, the way you conduct yourself all day. They watch you and they learn. And by giving them the right message, you're sending that child off to the universe. It's not just that child. That child's going to get married. That child's going to have kids. Your impression of who you are and who he is, he will pass down.
Yeah.
When you create one child, you're creating a universe. It's that big and that's serious. And that's why it's very sad today. There's so many people who just, get divorced and go with another person and think there's no consequences for that. Divorce is a really, obviously it's a very costly thing, but for a young child, it's a tough thing.
Yeah. It just, yeah. I mean, I've seen and I've even spoken with a lot of young kids that have been through difficult upbringings. And you're right, it has affected them in a number of ways. I mean, the anxiety levels, depression, the stress. I mean, they feel like there's something definitely missing. I mean, they haven't had that base, that foundation.
That base. Now, am I saying that people from divorced families can't be successful? Of course not. No. I'm just saying it's that much harder. But look, Pete, you asked me a question before. You said, did you ever quit thinking about quitting? Did you know? And I could only attribute that to my family, my parents. My parents ingrained in me when I was a little boy that I was so special. I maybe they overdid it a little bit. Was I spoiled a little bit? Yeah. I was the only boy in an Italian family, probably. But they gave me so much love and security that I just felt like I could do anything and lift buildings. And I think that's why when people say to me, how could you turn down $1 million when you had $200 in the bank? And I say, I can't explain that. All I could say is I just knew. I just knew.
I've always been fascinated by that inner voice. Like, how do you know? But some people just do. And I mean, it's like with, for example, and relating to that similar story, I mean, it wasn't financial in nature. It was, it kind of was actually, because I was offered a job that was high paying and I knew that I would have been great at it. But I chose not to do it because something inside me didn't feel right. And then that sort of led me down the path of doing this. So do I regret it? Absolutely not. Because I saw that the most important thing for me in that moment was being true to what I believed in. And that was my purpose, which is helping people realize that they are worth something and their story matters, So I think you can appreciate that because you're in a very similar situation. And I think it is difficult when you are approached like that with a huge financial figure to not be true to what you believe in.
Right. I mean, well, always remember this. I could try to give you a piece of advice from somebody who's quite a bit older than you. And that is for you and your listeners out there, whenever you do anything for money or guilt, it will come back and bite you in the ass. Always, always. If you do it for the money or you do it for guilt, in the end, it will hurt you. That's guaranteed. Guaranteed. So just try to remember that. If you remember that, you can save yourself a lot of heartache. Oh,
yes. Totally agree with you on that front.
Yeah.
Chazz, you mentioned that you grew up in a very loving household and family, like you could lift buildings, you could do whatever you wanted. Yeah. I'm curious, at the age that you are now, what do you love the most about yourself and your story?
I would say that what I love the most about it is that I'm still doing it. It's more relevant today than it ever was people can't get enough of it. Listen, I've done 68 movies, and Bronx Tale is the one they talk about that one the most. Of course, Usual Suspects and Bullets Over Broadway and Analyze This and a bunch. I've been fortunate. I've been in some wonderful movies, but still, Bronx Tale is the one they talk about the most, because I think the characters that I have in that are archetypes, and it just reaches. Bronx Tale is a huge hit in Japan.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, how could that be? What is that? I don't know. It's family. I was in Bahrain, and they loved Bronx Tale there. I was in Argentina. They loved Bronx Tale there. I was just in Monte Carlo. They loved Bronx Tale there. They study Bronx Tale in colleges. Kids do thesis on it about good and evil and about the wasted talent thing. So that's what I love about it the most, that it's still here, it's still relevant, and people, and it'll be here. Look, it's the only time in history that anything has gone from a one-man show to a major movie to a Broadway musical. So I'm very proud of that. And I know it'll be here for a long time, and I know my children will reap the benefits from it. So I'm happy about that.
Well, I'm definitely going to show my future kids as well. And all the films that you've been in, probably not the R-rated ones, but the ones that are good.
When they're 11 years old.
When they're of age, yes.
Sure.
But I grew up with, like, towards the later stage of my life, I'm still quite young, obviously, but I learned to appreciate all the classics like The Godfather, Mean Streets, pretty much all of Scorsese's films too. So I had this great understanding of what a good film was from the very word go. It was informed with the story first and foremost, then the characters, then how you portrayed them on the screen. So that for me was sort of like my base. And for you, Chazz, like when you were looking at a story or a particular a character, for example, what was your process like in terms of your creative outlet of forming the character that goes in line with the story?
Well, before I say yes to a script, I like a character he doesn't have to be likable. Some actors, they only want to play likable characters. I don't care about that at all. As you can see from some of my movies, I've played characters who are despicable. Hurly-burly, diabolique. I don't care if you like me. I just care if you understand me.
Yeah.
If you understand why I'm this way, then I'm okay with that. I want the character to be three-dimensional. I want him to have layers. I don't want him to be one note. That's why I won't play a gangster who's just one note.
Yeah.
I'll play a gangster, but he has to be more than that. In Bullets Over Broadway, Cheech was a brilliant playwright. In Bronx Tale, Sonny was like a philosopher besides being a killer. So a lot of these characters have to be three-dimensional for me to play them. So I look for that in a character.
Do you have a particular character that you relate to the most, or do you relate to them all in some way, shape, or form?
I forgot who said it. Oh God, I always like to give credit if somebody said something, but I can't remember who said it. But people say, well, actors, we put a mask on.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that as actors. I don't agree with that. I think we take a mask off.
Yeah.
I think there's something in us, in that character, that we can understand. Now, when you're playing some psycho, when you say that, people might say, Jesus, God, but for whatever reason, I could connect to it. Look, we all have a dark side, Jake. It's called a shadow.
Yeah.
And the best way to deal with the shadow is to stop and turn around and face it. You know, when you face your shadow and put your arms around them and say, hey, we're in this together, man. I try to teach my students that in the acting, you know, is not to be afraid of the things that you're ashamed of, or the things that you feel, but you take that shadow and you make him your friend. And now you're even more powerful because I could go to that piece of me, that part of me that wants to go to the dark places. And that's why you say to me, well, you know, you're when I see you on screen, you're always there. Well, I'm there because it's just not me. It's me and my shadow together. Whatever that character is, I bring it and feel it in my eyes and in my head. And then when they say cut, I let go. But I have to bring that realness to the part. Me, I have to. Some actors maybe don't have to go there or do that, and God bless them, but I have to do that. So
some actors, they can turn it on and off when the camera starts rolling, where others, they just can't. They're like, they have to be in that frame of mind the entire time. So,
well, as long as I know where the frame of mind is, I could pretty much turn it off and then on. But I originally have to find where I have to turn it on first. Once I know the on switch, then I go, okay, I'm good now. Now I can turn it off, turn it on.
Yeah.
But I have to seek that on switch and find out what it is. Once I find it, then I'm okay.
Chazz, with the time that we have left, I've got a couple more questions for you, if you don't mind. I really, really enjoy this conversation. Could speak to you forever. When would you say in your life has been the most vulnerable moment for you?
The most vulnerable moment. Wow. I think the first time that I did the show, you know, I mean, I kept putting the pieces together. Oh, and this is a great story. I put the pieces together, but I never did the whole thing in one sitting. And there was this woman who was doing a West Fest. It was called of one person shows. And she said, well, hey, I heard you're working on a one-man show. And I said, yeah. She goes, would you like to do it for my theater company, Ensemble Studio Theater in LA? So I said, yeah, okay. I said, yeah. You know, I thought it was for her studio, for her company. I didn't know it was this big thing. So I thought it was going to be like 30, 40 people. And now I'm going to perform the whole thing for the first time straight through. And so I get to the theater here like 45 minutes early, and, you know, there's a few people there. And I'm just going over the whole thing in my head, you know. It's 90 pages of dialogue you got to memorize, you know. But I feel confident. I had it. And then also I hear like a lot of people coming in, and I said, the hell is it? And I looked outside and the whole place was sold out. And I said to her, I said, how many people are out there? She goes, oh, about 350. And I'm like, 350? I thought it was a class. She said, no, this is like the West Fest. So now I got to go out there and perform this thing for 300 people, 350 people. I never did it the whole thing before. I just was looking I looked in the mirror and I'm saying to myself, well, okay, I could say I'm sick and I can't do it. I could say, well, I just got an emergency phone call. But then I looked in the mirror and I said, just do it, bro. Just do it. Trust it and just do it. So I went in the sink. I left at the bathroom and I put water on my face and I said, just do it. Just do it. So I went out there and bam, I started it. And I did it with just a chair. No props, no nothing, just a chair. And I finished. And as soon as I finished, the whole place stood up and started cheering and clapping. And I think before that was the most vulnerable I felt on stage ever. And what happened was after everybody, I was the last show. And, everybody was leaving the theater and everybody's coming over to me. And I was outside and there was a crowd of people around me telling me, oh my God, You got to continue doing this. It's great. And then finally, they all walked away, and I was alone. And everybody just kind of went off to their own cars. And there I was, standing on a corner by myself. And I parked my car a couple of blocks down. So I started walking towards my car. Then all of a sudden, Jay, I screamed so loud by myself, walking down the street. I was like, ah! I mean, like this horrific scream. And people opening windows, what the hell? And I just smiled at them and I said, oh, everything's okay. I think it was just 30-something years of frustration. And then finally, it all came out of me. And so that was a pivotal moment that I always think about.
Wow. Another great story. Thank you for sharing that. And has there been a particular director that you have loved working with more, or have you loved working with all of them?
I think all of them. I learned something from every one of them. I learned so much from Robert De Niro when he directed Bronx Tale. I learned what the idea of being collaborative is. He was so collaborative, and he was so, and he's the one who taught me that it takes just as much talent to recognize a great idea as it is to come up with it yourself. Mm. So don't feel, if you don't come up with the idea, somebody else does. But if you recognize that, you have the same amount of talent. Mm. And with Jerry Zaks, who won 4 Tonys on Broadway, who taught me comedy is all about timing and time. Time, take your time. Pace, take your time. William Friedkin, who directed The Exodus and French Connection, I worked with him, and
wow,
taught me about lenses and about drama. Lee Tamahora, who did that movie Mulholland Falls, and of course Woody Allen, who taught me a lot about comedy. Woody's thing about comedy was no pauses. Pauses death. No pauses, just say the lines, no pauses. And I never forgot that. So I remember that. So I learned a lot from all of them, I think.
If you could go back to your younger self and give yourself some good advice, what advice would you want to give yourself?
How young am I? Do you have any? You say my younger self. How young would you
say? Say you're around my age at the moment, so 24, thereabouts.
Wow. At 24, my advice would be invest in the internet. No, not really. But I would have said that. But I think I would have said, wow, that's a damn, no one ever asked me that before. I think I would have said, don't stress so much. Just relax. It's going to happen. Like, I knew it was going to happen, but I stressed a lot.
Yeah. I think that's perfect advice for a young person, because the age that I am now, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of young people can relate to me that are listening to this, we kind of want things now. We want good things to happen right this very second.
Yeah.
And I've been caught. I mean, I was speaking to someone yesterday about one of the biggest lessons that they've learned in their life and they've taken away so far. And they've said, it's just being patient. It's just the process and being patient.
Yeah. You know what? On my podcast today, I had a wonderful guest who I've done a couple of movies with, Giancarlo Esposito, who's a great actor. And we were talking, and I asked him, I said, what advice would you give to young people? And he came out, he said something so brilliant. He said, do things today that you want to happen tomorrow. And I thought about that, and he was so right. You know, if you want something to happen tomorrow or soon in the future, then you better do things today. Like go to school, study acting, study writing, study journalism. I always say to people, young people ask me, you know, what is the secret to success? I said, it's really simple. It's 2 things. If you do these 2 things You cannot fail. Impossible. And the two things are be really good at what you do and be well liked.
Mm.
That's it. If you're good at what you do, really good, and well liked, people will find the spot for you.
Mm.
You'll get hired. Don't worry. They'll find you. But so many people are good at what they do, but they're not well liked. And so many people are well liked, but they're not good at what they do.
Mm.
But if you could do both, I say this to all you young people out there, you cannot fail. And I talk about this on my podcast. I always tell them, you got to do things. You got to woodshed. It's called delayed gratification. Mm. You're right. The young people today want it right now, instantly. It's not the way it is. Do it now. Work hard now. Because when the chance comes, you want to be ready.
Yeah. I think there's that movie, I think called The Secret. It's kind of like you're sitting back, waiting for the universe to just give you everything that you've ever wanted. Yeah. But if you think about it, it's magically going to turn up. And I don't think that's the point really of living a good life. It's just that breeds, for me, that breeds laziness. Like my grandfather would be turning in his grave if he heard me just say, "Oh, Grandy, I'm waiting for things to happen. Just magically, I'm not doing anything." No. It was all about the action. Like
the action.
Do it.
Action brings a reaction.
Exactly.
Always an action brings a reaction. And you have, look, it's about forward motion. Mm-hmm. Your decisions in life have to mean you're going forward. You know when you're making a backward decision. You're not dumb. Nobody's dumb. When they're getting in a car, when all their friends are drunk, that's a bad decision. When they're staying home and studying when all their friends are going out, that's a good decision. If you say to yourself, every time you make a decision, is this getting me closer to my goal or farther away? And if the answer is farther away, you don't do it. You don't do it. Now, it's easier said than done. Yeah. But the mind is like a muscle. And the more you build up that muscle, the stronger you get. It's no different. The mind is a muscle just like the bicep is. And the more you say, no, I'm not going, I'm going to study, I'm going to work hard, I'm not going to take drugs, I'm not going to lose my temper, the more success you'll have. Yeah. Sometimes 5 seconds of patience could relieve hundreds of years of misery. Just be patient. You do something really stupid and you pay for it the rest of your life. I know. I grew up in that neighborhood where that happened. Guys did something dumb because of respect. And a guy said something to him and he stabbed him and he killed him. And now he's away in jail his whole life. Just have patience. That's all he had to do. So I say that to your young people out there.
It's a perfect lesson, I think. And it's one that young people need to learn more of. And you said it perfectly. It's easier said than done.
Right. It is.
I have this philosophy and this saying that my audience knows, I hope very well. It's if you really want something, be persistent to remain consistent at the things that you do want. Because for me, consistency is a flow-on effect of when I am persistent. So I don't give up. If I have a goal at something, kind of like you with wanting to get the Bronx Tale made, you didn't give up. Doesn't matter if someone throws you $1 million in your face. Right. If you weren't going to be the starring lead, you weren't going to give up until that was going to happen. Yes. So the persistence, I feel like, in just being patient, it works wonders. And I love how you said 5 seconds of patience. Like count yourself down, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Count yourself
down. If you have to. Before I do this, wait a second, think it through, then stop. Yeah. Stop. And you will save yourself a lifetime of misery. Yeah. A lifetime of misery. Because when you lose your temper, even when you're right, you're wrong. Nobody wants to be with somebody who loses their temper. Nobody. Forward motion. Just remember that. Every decision I make is forward motion.
Perfect. You mentioned that you were speaking to an amazing person on your podcast. I want to sort of end the show on a good note, on a high note on your podcast.
Yeah.
So why did you decide, firstly, I think people ask this question all the time, why did you decide to start a podcast? I mean, it's a heavily saturated industry. I mean, why did you decide to start one?
Okay, because I love helping people. I love serving human beings. For 30 years now, I walk around with a card. I have these little cards in my wallet. The saddest thing in life is wasted talent. And for 30 years, I've been walking around with these cards, and I meet young actors, and they go, "Hey, Chazz, you know, the advice you gave me, and you gave me one of those cards 5 years ago. Hey, I'm on a soap now. And look, I still got the card, you know." And I've been going through this for 30 years. And then I looked at the internet and I said, well, wait a minute. Instead of helping X amount of kids, I can help everyone if I get a successful podcast. I can talk to them directly. You know, wait a minute, this is great. So I love doing it. They write in questions and I talk about their lives. I have great guests on my show. I had Billy Joel, obviously the great. I have singers. I have Sting is coming on. I have, oh my God, Vincent D'Onofrio, the great actor, Alan Menken, the great Broadway guy, you know, Giancarlo Esposito, Forrest Whitaker. I have great actors, great directors. So I have great guests, but I love the shows that I do myself, just talking one-on-one to the audience like you are right now. And it's a fulfilling thing for me. I enjoy doing it. It's just very fulfilling.
This is a question that I ask some of my podcasters, but if you were to ask a question to anyone alive or dead, who would it be, why, and what question would you want to ask them?
Oh, that's an easy one because me and my friends used to talk about that. The person obviously would be Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. I would want to talk to Jesus and I would want to just ask him about this whole thing and say, come on, is this legit or what? You know what I'm saying? Are you the son of God? Come on, level with me now. No, I would really, look, I believe in spirits. I believe in God. There was a man named Jesus Christ. He did walk this earth. And think about this. Here's a man, died at 33 years old. Really, there was no internet then. He never left more than 30 miles from the place he was born, if I'm not mistaken. And now he's the most famous, and he's the centipede of more religions than anyone in the whole world. He had to do something. He had to be like one hell of a person. So whatever, I would like to speak to him. That's who I would like to talk to.
To say, hey, what's the secret? You didn't have any internet. How did you become so famous?
How did you become so famous? How did this happen? You know, you didn't travel. You didn't travel more than 30 miles away. You hung out with the same 12 guys. You know what I mean? You know, your mother thought you were God. You must have been Italian. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I would have to ask him these questions. Really, I really would. How did this happen?
Yeah.
And even if he was just the greatest philosopher, but I do believe he was God, the Son of God, because I'm a Catholic. I'm not a born again Christian at all, but I am a Catholic. I would like to speak to him. If anyone, he's by far and away, he'd be the first.
I'm a Christian as well. Right. I believe in God, whole thing. So I think you hit the nail on the head. I think everyone wants to know that as well. Yeah. Like, hey, what is all this? You know, and I think this side of eternity we won't know, but I think it's exciting. The moment we get to heaven one day, then I think a lot of questions that I already have will be answered in that very moment, but I'll have a ton more to ask. Which
no, I don't believe this is the end. People, agnostic people believe that, and that's fine. I believe that the will and the spirit live on somehow. That's just my belief, you know.
Yeah. Same, same here. So I appreciate you sharing that, Chazz. This is my final question. It's my all-time favorite question I ask everyone at the end. It's a hypothetical one. Now, you've listened to my show before, so maybe you've heard me ask this question.
Before you do that, I want to remind people, again, if they want to go to my podcast, it's on YouTube, Chazz Palminteri Show. But also, if they want to really know a lot about me, they can go to chazzpalminteri.net.
Yep.
That is my site. That's where all my one-man shows are appearing in all over America if they want to come and see it. And it's just good that I wanted to get that out there.
Of course. I was going to anyway, It was all good. I appreciate you sharing that so people can go and find you. You're not hard to find at all. Just type in your name. I'll link everything in the show notes below. Promote it like a crazy. Love your show as well. It's a great show. You ask some good questions. You have some good conversations. And I love the one, just you answering questions as well. So people can go and get it wherever podcasts are. Chazz, my final question, hypothetical one, but I want you to imagine with me for a moment that you've been able to reach the age of 100. All your friends and your family have decided to put together a film for you of everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. Is different than A Bronx Tale, but they've been able, don't ask me how they got all the stuff. They've just been able to get it and show it to you on your 100th birthday. What do you want that film to say and to show about your life?
Wow. I want that film to say, it's that I was prolific. I did a lot of movies, and I was a really good actor and a really good artist. But more important to me, that I want to be known as a good man. I want to be known as a gentle, good man that my father was. My father was not famous, but he was more of a man than, I don't know, I don't think that I'll ever be, I think. He was just such a man. And my mom, both of them lived to see all my success. My mother died when she was 97. My mother died when she was 97. And my father... my father passed away at 90. Excuse me. And so they saw all my success. I just want to be known as a good person. That's it.
I feel like that is a perfect send-off message. Chazz, thank you so much for your story, the light that you are, the good person that you are, for believing in me enough to come on my show today. Thank you so much for everything that you do and for coming on the Storybox podcast today.
God bless. Take care.